And we're a go.
Hello, people.
Howdy.
We have been absent for like 2 weeks. I think we just got our air conditioning fixed. It was broken for 6 days
Had some stuff going on.
in the middle of summer. It was 85 degrees. So, needless to say, we're excited to be in this room and be cool. There was no way.
I'm just happy to not sweat doing basic tasks.
Oh yeah, walking in the house,
Yeah.
sweat,
Just being alive.
being alive, breathing. Yeah, that was miserable.
But we are back.
Yeah, we're good. We're Gucci. Let's get it.
Let's get it. So, we are going to be stepping out of the realm of health and fitness today.
Yup.
And we kind of talked about doing that. I set a poll up on my Instagram. What do you want to learn about? Relationships or business? And we had a lot of response for relationships, more than like 80%. So, that's kind of what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And just to preface, we are not relationship experts,
Huh.
but
LOL.
we have a relationship. So,
We do have that. We have a relationship.
we have done some things that didn't go well, and we have continued to work on some things and make things work better.
Yeah.
We're just really here to share our experience of how we kind of grow together as
Yeah.
a unit.
And truly, guys, this really helps us to talk it out and helps us moving forward in our ever evolving relationship.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've always been super transparent about that, though. Chase and I met when we were young and selfish, each of us, 100%. And we had a lot of growing to do, and we did.
And
We
anybody
grew separately
who,
and together.
anybody who knew us back
Ooh.
when we were in college and
Yikes.
like doesn't know us now,
Now,
and then if you were to tell them we were doing a podcast about relationships, it would be
LOL.
it would be a laugh factory.
Yeah, it probably still is, but I think that it's pretty apparent that we've grown, we've matured, we have a family, we have a baby and a doggo.
Or at least we like to think that we have.
No, we have for sure, 100%. So anyway, that's just the intro to this. Yep. And that's the thing too. Is like I think people that did know us then and do know us now, like they talk about that all the time. You know, it's like, man, it's great to see like you guys are like so successful and thriving, like mainly in like your life. Like you can tell you're genuinely like good. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah.
And I
Solid
want
as
to
a
go ahead.
rock.
Yeah, I want to go off of that and say that doesn't just happen.
No.
It is day in and day out. You have to put in the work with anything, especially when it comes to relationships and the people that are closest to you in life. You have to invest in that, and you have to want to not just grow together, but also grow personally and grow in yourself. And
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing for us is what happened a long time ago. Is that you and I had to grow separately before we could grow together. And
I
like
agree.
personally, I had to anyway. I was like, and I've said it 1,000 times, like since we've gotten married. I'm like, you cannot be successful in marriage and be selfish. Like that was the biggest takeaway for me is why would I not be selfish? I was 20 years old in college, like just started my first job. I've never had to, not be like that. So of course I'm selfish. I'm only more concerned about me.
yeah, it's common. I mean, humans are selfish by nature.
Yeah.
Everybody is gonna have that.
It just took
going for number one kind of.
yeah, it just
person.
took like a wake up call, which is what that was, to be like, okay, you actually are these things. So these are what you need to change. And it happened.
There we
So,
go.
Yeah. So we're going to jump in, I guess.
Topic number one.
Yeah. How arguments originate. Yikes.
And how do most arguments really originate? And really from like, I don't know, just micro, like putting our relationship under a microscope and really understanding why do our arguments originate. And luckily we don't have arguments that are big and that are meaningful or something. They're always stupid and petty. And what
Yeah.
we've kind of found happens is that our arguments originate from things that aren't even what we're arguing about.
No, yeah. It's like we'll argue and 10 minutes later I'm like, sorry, your nighttime routine was just really long and it made me mad. Like that's the biggest one for me. When I was sitting there thinking a while ago about this, I was like, that nighttime routine, like Chase takes forever.
But it's usually small things which starts, and it doesn't even have to deal with the other person. It could be
Yeah.
like we had a bad day, something didn't go right in a particular time of our life, and
Yeah.
we're kind of just carrying around that baggage. We don't understand how to let that go and not let that affect the people that we come in contact with the most, especially our spouse. So whenever we're carrying around that baggage,
Yeah.
the smallest things tend to set you off. Like
Oh, yeah.
if you have a bad day and then you harbor that internally and you don't outwardly express your emotions, then you carry that for multiple days, and then you come home and there's, I don't know, something's different in the house that you don't like. I'm like, why don't you ever pick up your dang bobby pins from? I'm like, I don't care.
Hello.
Like who
First of all, that I feel attacked. I feel seen. Yeah. That's you. You know, that's like you talking about. That's a huge thing for you, is that you've learned how to let that go. In the beginning of our relationship, Chase would never allow himself to like feel in the moment, and then he would just bottle it up and push it down, and then 4 months later I would hear about how this one day 4 months prior just drove him crazy, and I'm like, well, why would you just not say something? Like, tell me then in the moment and we'll talk about it. Like, I can't do anything about it now. It's 4 months later.
Yeah, and I thought that I was doing ourselves a service by like not bringing something up that bothered me,
Yeah.
just because like I didn't want it to turn into an argument, and really all it did was just,
Make it worse.
yeah, I mean, it just hurt me
Yeah.
eternally. And then by letting that build up and allowing me to have time to really reflect on negative emotions for an extended period of time, then whenever it did come out, it was worse than it
was
ever could have
bad.
been.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm the exact opposite. I am very emotional and very defensive, and I want to like guard that. I want to be defensive on that. I want to like I don't want him to like I don't want to show my cards or anything. Like, I don't want him to see me in my feels about it. I'm like, I'm independent woman. I don't need no man type thing whenever but Chase knows exactly, like I don't know. I'm just like so emotionally dependent on him that he, knows exactly what to do.
And that's why I feel like whenever we do have these small arguments, they might turn into something bigger, where like we don't want to let it go, because both of us, we're so similar, because when these things come up, we are so quick to put our guard up. We are so defensive. Our ego gets in the way. We have a ton of pride. And at that point, now we're at a high state of emotion.
Yeah.
And now we aren't hearing anything what each other says. And after we really like break down why we get into like bickers or whatever, it really comes down to...
Is that a word? Bicker?
I don't have any idea. Yeah, I think we bicker. That is a word.
Bickerment.
Whatever.
I don't know. That just was one of those words that like, I was like, is that a word?
But yeah, like once we talk about it afterwards, we understand that, and we had like this big epiphany moment where it was like, I know that you want to be heard, but that is also the only thing that you want, is for you to be heard, and you want me to 100% understand that, and you want me to vocally like tell you that I know you're right, and I'm the same way, because I know that I know my truth of truths. What is coming out of my mouth is the only truth on this world. I don't care what you're saying. I want you to hear me. I don't want to hear anything that you're saying. I just want you to acknowledge that I'm right.
Yep.
And when both people are in that state,
Toxic.
nothing is going to get
bad.
Nothing's going to happen.
It's just round and round. And then that is a good point. Like, speaking of, it's usually not in the moment what makes you mad. Like, Brooks had RSV, and then the air conditioning thing happened, and it was like he couldn't go to school, and I had to go to work, so you had to keep him, and he was up a lot during the night that night. I was extremely tired. I was already irritable. I don't think I felt something, I remember that day, and we had just nothing could go. I couldn't get out of the house. Nothing was going right this morning, and we just were just arguing. We were on each other's nerves. And like, I was just driving to work, and I was like, ugh, like I'm not saying sorry first. I am not going to do it. And of course, listening to K-Love, and it's talking about not being prideful, and, all these things that just like, to be more like Jesus and to be forgiving and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, God, thank you for that. And picked up the phone and called him, and I was like, I'm sorry, like, you know, letting go of that pride and like acknowledging like this is 100% going against anything that I would have ever done in the past. You know what I mean? Like that is a huge growing point for yourself to be like, man, I'm acknowledging that this is 100% going against being prideful. And it's like not in the argument, people are always like, oh, you know, you win, whatever. Like there is no win and loss. Like if you win and I lose, that's still a win for our relation. That's still a loss for our relationship. And like, that's the biggest thing for me. It's like, I feel like I won in the moment, but like, what is that? What is that? You know, it's like the relationship lost the war. Like, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, it's not, I don't like for he and I not to be in a place of resolvement now. Like previously we could have gone days and like neither one of us would have budged. We would not have budged off that line of, I'm sorry, you're right. Now it's like, I want to resolve this and move on as quickly as possible because it's like, we're just better.
Yeah, and that's why I really like to focus on, you know, not coming to a state of concurrence. Because what concurrence is usually one party had to give up something.
Yeah.
When you come to a state of concordance, that means both parties have accurately like understood the other side, and now we are able to move forward in full agreement.
Where are you getting these words from? You been on that vocabulary?
I'm just smart.
Never heard him use that. So yeah, anyway, I guess moving on from that, or talking about that and like kind of like
it's a perfect transition into the next topic.
Self-reflection and communication. And that's exactly what was just happening is in that moment, I realized I was being prideful. I didn't want to admit that I was, you know, wrong and something externally was causing me to feel this way. And this was over nothing. And I was reflecting on myself in that moment. And then I actively communicated that to Chase that this was wrong. I was, you know, going against my pride here and saying I'm sorry and wanting to move on from it, you know?
Yeah. And my favorite story about when that happened, actually one of the first times it ever happened was that we were driving in the car and like everything was fine. And we were listening to a podcast, and just a little background on me. Like when I hear information, I look at it at every single aspect that I possibly can, at every single angle, every single area. I take in all the information and try to really acknowledge what the person is thinking who is telling it to me and how I feel about it. Mm-hmm. So this topic came up in a podcast, and I said, I mean, I can see where they're coming from this, and I can understand why they would say this. Mm-hmm. And then Lindsay didn't say anything, and she was quiet the rest of the ride. I didn't even really think about it. And then when we got back to the house, she just like sat in my lap and she said, "Hey,
no, it was eating me alive. That's why I didn't say anything. And it was driving me crazy. And it was literally like my insides were boiling. Like it was truly making me like upset. And the reason why I came to you is because I was upstairs, like getting ready for bed. And I felt myself getting mad at him. Like, literally gonna harbor this in,
which then would have transferred to the next day.
Would have been awful, and like I could not help myself. Like it just was crazy. It was.
But the way that you handled it was
I just realized graceful. This was getting out of control within myself, and I was like, this has not even been 5 minutes, and I was like, at that point, it was allowing me to like make up all these like not lies, but like make up all these scenarios, assumptions in my head, and it was like, okay, this is out of control. Like I've got to just be honest. And so like I went downstairs and I literally sat in his lap. We were sitting at the beach, and I was like, hey, I just need to be honest with you, like really quick. And he was like, okay. And I just like, this certain scenario, this certain thing just like makes me uncomfortable, and it just really is like, I don't know. And you can.
Yeah, and that's why I say that you handled it with grace, because it wasn't like, hey, I'm mad that you said this. You sat down and very softly toned, you said, hey, I just want to let you know this has been eating at me since we were in the car and this happened, and I want to tell you how it makes me feel.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about it was, like, as this was happening, I could not stop smiling. And she's like being super serious to me, and I'm just over here giggling like a school kid. Because after she got done talking, I said, I don't think you understand, like, the resemblance of what's happening, like the magnitude of what's happening. You understand that, like, you were upset, and instead of harboring that, you came and talked to me about it. This hasn't happened before. Like, you reflected in yourself that you know, this has happened in the past and you've harbored these feelings and it's turned into something bigger. So you made a personal decision to come to me and just have a conversation about it. And you communicated those feelings to me, and you have no idea, like, the pivotal moment in our relationship that
Yeah.
has come about doing that. So yeah, that was a big moment.
That was not even that long ago.
That's true.
That was like not that long ago that this has happened. And but since then, it's like, I honestly feel like too, this is kind of off topic, but like, I feel like since we've had Brooks, like we had made we had a conversation before we even had Brooks ever, that we were not going to allow ourselves to speak to each other poorly in front of our child. You know, I 100% think it's healthy to have disagreements in front of our kid and let him see resolvement in a healthy way. I don't want to ever have him see us be nasty to each other. And like, people that knew us previously know what a huge step that is, because I mean, like I said, Chase and I were young, and like we would just go in. It's like, why not, you know? And now it's like we don't ever do that. And it's like, you know, it just is hard to believe that we ever were in a place, because our relationship now is just so, you know, 180 from what that ever was, that we were ever in a place that we maybe didn't like respect each other's feelings.
Yeah, we weren't able to resolve simple issues just
No.
because we had way too much pride.
Right. And again, I'm talking on y'all, whenever I felt that inside of me, like, and that was happening, me deciding to do that, it would have 100% led to a massive argument, like massive. And all because I just didn't want to say, hey, this makes me feel a little uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about it, you know?
Yeah.
It just was cool.
It was really cool. And yeah, I mean, like, transitioning from self-reflection, communication in a relationship, and kind of what that looks like, it really just comes down to honoring each other's feelings and honoring each other's emotions. Because whenever you don't do that, the other person suffers, and you suffer in the long run.
Yeah,
Because,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, especially whenever you are having, even when somebody comes to you, like, super chill about it and say, hey, I want to talk to you about this. If you are consistently thinking about your own emotions and how you are going to rebuttal,
Mm-hmm.
you're not actively listening to what they are saying. You don't understand their emotions and why they feel the way that they're expressing to you.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, if you're constantly thinking in your head, okay, what am I going to say back to this? What is my argument?
Yeah.
You've already lost.
Rather than listening.
Yeah.
That's what you were saying earlier. And that's what I was talking about with, you know, oh, I won and he lost. Like, yeah, like, no, like the relationship lost. So what, like, I again, it's just part of being selfish.
And this is
that.
what I was so bad about.
What?
The listening to you, because like
yeah.
I was consistently, and
What's
it was that
reply
ego,
with?
it was that pride. It was like I understand what you're saying, but I was putting your feelings to the side. And I was like, I don't honestly, and I was really not even putting to the side, but even downgrading them a little bit, like,
Oh yeah.
telling you shouldn't feel like this.
Yes.
Because like, even if I said something and I didn't mean it this way or whatever, and you would be like, well, I don't like how you said this and it made me feel this way. And my reply would always be, well, I didn't mean it that way, so you shouldn't feel like that. Like, who the heck am I to say how you should or shouldn't feel? Like,
That
if
was
I
a
said
big
something
deal.
that upset you,
Yeah.
I should take responsibility for that. You know, not just say, oh, I didn't mean to say it that way, so you shouldn't feel bad.
Right. Or I did 100% mean to say it that way. And you know, you shouldn't feel that way regardless. Like, that was a big deal, like a big thing for you. Like, whenever you realized that you did that to me, like, or would respond that way, and then you stopped doing that, like, it made me feel validated and normal for, like, this is normal to feel upset by what you just said to me. Like, that was a huge, and I think that's why, like, again, personal growth separately, that allows us to grow in our relationship. I think that's an exact demonstration of that, is that does these certain specific things that we used to do, we realized that we self-reflected on it and we changed it, and then our relationship has just like blossomed.
Yeah, and when you really think about personal growth, like when you really try to better yourself, you find situations where you're able to do that.
Yeah.
And you just have to be actively aware of when to make that change.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's really small whenever it happens, and it all comes down to letting your guard down. So and specifically, I remember when we were arguing about something, and I was telling you that I don't know how I felt, and you should be doing this, and I don't feel you're doing that and doing that, and I was thinking solely of myself, and you said you don't even understand that I'm always your biggest cheerleader, and I was like, no, that's true.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
I like,
And I was like, and it was all like my own like stuff I was harboring myself,
hmm
and it just come down to I don't know. I was taking all of my frustration out on her, and
yeah,
and then when she said that, I was like, dang, you're right. You have been by my side like through everything, and you've never bat an eyelash. I was like, if I want to do this, you're like, okay, cool. If I want to go here, you're like, okay, cool. And
hmm
then I was just taking my own frustrations out on her. So yeah, but all that to say, personal growth, self reflection, do it, and just be mindful of it.
Oh, that's sweet, babe. I love you.
I love
Yeah, that and that's what the thing with, and people have said that too, that they can like, and it's genuine though. That's like my thing is, it's like I truly like I'm Chase's biggest hype man. Like I share his Instagram post on my stories and like comment everything. I mean, but it's true. Like it's never forced. Like I truly am like genuinely like happy and hype, and like he comes to me with the gym idea. Yeah, cool, great, let's do it. And then little pushback sometimes, and then
Mm.
like this room, I'm like, what, you want to put a sauna in the house? Like we're gonna lose a bedroom, and then here we are. It's the best thing ever. It's like, you know it's just a difference in personalities a little bit sometimes, and it just takes an argument sometimes to say, hey, like this sucks because I'm this for you and you're not necessarily that for me. Like how can we adjust this?
Hmm.
So anyway, that led him being my biggest cheerleader to me getting a new purse.
Yeah, there we go.
It did. So, and then kind of moving on from that, like me talking about me being like his biggest hype man and like support and stuff. And it's, probably because in my opinion, it's like Chase is like my best friend for sure. Like, I have female best friends. I love you guys. But if your spouse that you live with and you parent with is not your best friend, in my opinion, I'm like, yikes.
Mhm.
Because there's not a single thing that like he and I don't talk about, or that we don't like, we share so many hobbies. It's like when I first started dating you, I was so worried that you would like feel weird about like, me going, like I grew up fishing with my dad, right? And like grew up hunting with my dad. I was always worried, like, do you feel like this is weird that you don't ever get to go do this stuff without me? A lot of guys run to the woods to get away from their wives and go do all these things to get away from their wives.
And
like,
I'm bummed when you're not there.
and I go with you. So it's like, do you not want me to come? Like, I just, I was worried about it. And he was like, no, like, I love that we do this, and that everything in life we do like that. There's some things that obviously we do separately, which is 100% healthy. But more than not, we share so many hobbies. And I think that's why our relationship is like it is you're truly my best friend, but that we also share so many hobbies in the way that, like, I don't know, it's just opposites attract, sure, but like it's important to have things that you share and do together as well.
Yeah, and I think
besides just eating, like on a date.
right. Yeah, and I think it comes down to just continuing to work on your relationship, and I feel like if you do that, you will continue to have more in common with your spouse.
Right.
Because like if you continue to work on your relationship, then you want to be with them. You want your hobbies to be their hobbies. You want their success to be your success. You're like everything just kind of melds together whenever you consistently work for a desired outcome. If you
Right.
want your marriage to work, you got to work on it.
Right. And that's like people always say, like the biggest thing is to keep dating your spouse. 100% agree. But it's like when you are in a relationship, kind of like Chase and I have, where it's like we truly just enjoy each other's company. It's like us doing this podcast, like feels like a date. We get to like hang out and talk, and us watching TV in bed at night feels, everything we do. And like ever since having Brooks, it kind of makes it feel that much more special, in my opinion, because other than that, I mean, all my time is going to be spent what's going on with my baby, what's going on with my child, so it's really nice to be able to have these moments, and beside, and like really honing in on the fact that like a date doesn't have to mean food. It doesn't have to mean restaurant. He and I like to go play. We don't have a clue how to play tennis. No clue. I hit the ball over the fence like 45 times, but we go out there and we have the best time. People are probably watching us like those idiots, literally. And we're like laughing the whole time. Basketball. Never played basketball. We have soccer. Like we have soccer cleats. We have a basketball. We don't have any idea how to do, but it's just,
and
we're doing it together.
Not go to the gym either.
Yeah.
And we started doing that together, and then look what happened.
Yeah. And so it just blossoms into things that, like, I don't know. Again, it's just making sure that relationship is, and back on that, like we have a listener, a friend of mine, you know, who owns a business here in town, like who I had no idea even listened to the podcast, number one, but I go in for a service and she's like, I just want you to know that you guys are like so inspiring. Like I listen to the podcast to listen to y'all, like, and to be inspired by like your relationship. And you can tell how much you guys love each other and how supportive you are of each other. And I was like, she told me all this that day and I'm like, man, that like really just kind of like grew my heart a lot, because it's like, it really makes me feel good that people, like, we know that, and like we know our relationship. And like he was saying earlier, it's probably, this whole situation is probably funny to people who knew us in college who don't know us now and may think that like, oh yeah, well, you know, they were toxic in college and stuff like that. It's like, it makes me happy that people can genuinely see like our relationship and how we bounce off each other and how we interact is truly what it is.
That's why I love this outlet, though. Mainly because even if we're not talking about health and fitness, I mean, if we're able to give anybody just a little bit of knowledge that, you know, things that we have messed up in our life and how we've come to fix it, if that can help anybody in their relationship, you know, we would be doing somebody a disservice not to share our you know, situations.
Right. And I don't want people to think that we don't have arguments. We 100% do. Literally all the time. Small things like the coffee wasn't made in the morning when I got up and I love coffee, like that kind of thing. Like, just, we definitely argue. We're not perfect, but like he and I,
bicker.
Y'all need to, it's bicker. Yeah. Y'all need to understand too that like we were once in a place where this would have been a freaking laughable joke for us to sit down and talk about our relationship. And it's like, it just is amazing to see somebody can go and have so much growth and still come out and it not have to be like, you know, we're not right for each other. We're in a bad place. Let's go ahead and like, I'm going to make personal growth, but separate from you. And then it leading into, you know, a separation or whatever. It's like, you can have personal growth and work through some stuff and come out like we have, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. So continue to work on your relationships, guys.
Yeah.
And actually something that we've just implemented,
wait, I have it on my phone.
I mean, kind of recent is, you know, we knew each other's love languages for a while, and everybody's always heard of these. Like, you do your Myers-Briggs test, you all do that, and you find out your love languages and your personality traits. We've really been like focusing in on what those mean. Why do we operate the way we operate? Why do we think the way that we think? Why do we do the things that we do? Why are our emotions the way that they are? Being able to understand ourselves, and then also being able to understand our spouse, and then kind of how we coexist in a more fluid way has just worked wonders. And now what we're recently getting into is the Enneagrams. Yeah. If you've never done an Enneagram test, I highly recommend it. It's kind of like love languages and Myers-Briggs had a baby. I'm an Enneagram 3. Lindsay's an Enneagram 8. So now we're understanding the same things. How do all of these
Yes, and it's work? So funny because I was laying in bed one night and I was doing it and it like popped up and I was like, man, that's like spot on. And I was like, Chase, what's your Enneagram? And he was like, what is that? And I was like, come take the test. And you can tell this because you're the one who did it, but like the word that first popped up like on your descriptor of what an Enneagram 3.
It was attained.
It was attained, literally. And I was like, wow. And so I follow Instagrams now that are all about Enneagrams. And my Enneagram, words associated with each Enneagram type, which is an 8, is control, yikes, lead, assertive, independent, and protect. Which probably I could not pick any words better probably to describe that. Chase's is driven, work, competition, motivational, and chameleon.
So now you can kind of see how those two could clash.
Yeah.
So understanding how to not make that happen.
Me being independent and him being competitive. me having control problems, and then him again being competitive and driven. Yeah.
Yeah, so we are super like hard in our ways and in the way that we think,
Yeah.
breaking that cycle, putting our guard down, but mainly understanding that we are like that in the first place. Like
Right.
if you don't understand why you operate the way that you do, you
Yeah.
don't know how to fix it, especially when you're trying to figure out another person, like not even trying to understand yourself, but
Yeah.
understanding another human being with different emotions,
Yeah.
different thoughts. Navigating in those waters is hard. And I think that's why so many relationships fail is you don't work on it.
Yeah. And it's kind of hard to see too. A lot of the times, it's like, I'm gonna be honest, like a lot of people that we went to college with, you know,
It happens.
they're not in relationships
Happens
anymore.
more times
And,
than not.
you know, it's like one of those things where we had every opportunity for our relationship to fail. It did fail. I mean, we had every opportunity for us to move on from that and we would have missed out on the best thing ever happened to us.
Yeah, and I also
And our
want to say
baby, Brooksy.
true. I also want to say just because you have a love language doesn't mean the other person has the same one.
Oh, no.
So understand there's a difference here. Just because you like to be treated a certain way doesn't mean they like to be treated a certain way.
Which is hard.
I was very bad about this,
Yeah.
just because whenever I would do something, an act of service, going through all the love languages,
Mm-hmm.
I would be expecting to reciprocate the same.
Like what you think what do you mean? Like what you gave me, I should give back?
Yeah, so I'm like, if I do, if I did the dishes a couple days in a row,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm like, okay, like I did the dishes. Now there's dishes in the sink again and they're dirty. Whenever she gets home from work, I expect her to do the dishes this time.
Mm.
And I expect that act of service
Mm-hmm.
because I showed her an act of service. But that might not be how she shows her love languages to me.
Mm-hmm.
So now, I mean, that creates like another thing, not communicating like, hey, babe, do you mind doing the dishes this time?
Mhm.
Like not saying that, but just assuming and expecting that she's going to do it just because I provided her a service.
Yeah.
So like,
And creating that argument in your
Yeah.
head. Yeah.
and I really want to lay down the point that you need to do acts of kindness and service, and you need to try to make the other person happy with zero expect to get anything in return,
Yeah.
just out of the kindness of your heart. Just because you want to make the other person happy should be why you do anything for them, not because you're going to get something back in return.
Right. That's a point that we were that was mentioned at church the other day. It's like serving with zero expectation to be served in return.
Yeah.
And like you had said the other day, it was like a perfect example of this, like the dishes thing. Like, whenever you were back, Chase teleworks. And so whenever he was working and I had just had the baby, he went back to work at like 4 weeks. And he would come home and I had Brooks. And of course, like he napped on me and things like that. But like I might have done the dishes that morning or something. Maybe I didn't. And he would come home and it's no secret, he meal preps. And he had like 5 meal prep containers, not going to lie. And would just dump them all in the sink, go change, and then go right back out to the gym to work out. And it's just like
It feels like a sign of disrespect.
yeah. And so now roles are reversed.
And I that's why I love this story, is because now you're going to work and I'm teleworking, and now
Yeah.
I have Brooks and I put him down in whatever when you're at work.
Yeah.
And then you get home and you throw your meal prep containers in the thing, and like now I see it as a sign of disrespect. So it's really funny to be able to see it from both sides of the story.
Yeah. But previously had, this now, like you see where I was coming from. And that
Yeah.
actually did cause an argument back then. It's like you made me feel like I wasn't doing my job like as a mom and a wife at the time because I wasn't keeping the house up or something. We didn't have a housekeeper to try to help me with or anything, and it made me feel bad. And I was just like, well, these aren't even my dishes. Like, these are your dishes. Like,
Mhm.
why don't you? And he's like, well, you're here all day. And what do you do? When I'm here with him, I don't have any problem. And I'm like, okay. So anyway,
It's all communication.
yeah. It's all gravy, baby, now. So, is that it? What else you got?
I think that's good. The last thing that I really wanted to focus on that ties into every single point that I think that we've kind of made
Mm-hmm.
is complacency and contentment ends up in catastrophe.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't work on your relationship, if you don't start to drop your ego, if you don't look into self-reflection, if you don't communicate, if you don't honor each other's feelings and continue to work on your relationship every single day, it ends in catastrophe. And
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's why so many relationships fail is
Mm-hmm.
because either one, you get complacent and it's just a monotonous of day-to-day activity, and you forget about the other person. You forget they have feelings too.
Yeah.
You forget they want to experience love just like you do, or you get contempt with just how your life is kind of flowing, and you don't get into a state of personal growth or personal empowerment, and that doesn't transfer to your marriage or your relationship or anything. So I just urge you to just love each other and continue to find things to make each other better and also make yourself better in the long run.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. Gucci.
Gucci.
Gucci gang. Gucci
Bandana.
gang. Gucci bandana. All right, guys. Well,
This was a fun one.
number 3.
Yeah, I hope y'all got something out of this. And of course,
Thanks for coming to our therapy.
yeah, if y'all ever like actually get anything out of this and you like the things that we talk about,
Let
just
me
yeah,
know.
just DM
It
us
makes
and
me
say
happy.
yeah, it actually gives us the opportunity to know that we might be making some kind of impact or leeway with
Yeah.
somebody, and we'll continue to do this. We
Yeah.
want to, we want to talk about a lot of things in
Yeah.
here. So
Let me
Yeah.
know. Hit me in the DMs. Slide into them, but don't slide into Chase's. I'm just kidding.
okay, Attain State of
Bye.
Mind, signing off.